I love losers, and you should too. My name's Andrew Stotson. I'm the host. In fact, I'm the worst podcast host of my worst investment ever podcast. And here I am in my little podcast studio. You can see how I have things set up there. And I have a microphone that I swivel in, and I interview people on my podcast. I interview people and I ask them to come on and share their worst investment ever. I've learned a lesson in life over the years, and that is, I used to think that success, particularly in investing, came from hitting home runs. As a young analyst, I was meeting with fund managers from around the world. I was in Thailand. They were visiting Thailand, and I was taking them to meet all of these companies in Thailand. And what I thought the best ones were home run hitters. They were impressive. But I learned a lesson many years ago, and that is that most of the best fund managers are actually the best risk managers. And that basically meant it wasn't about how much they made on a certain stock. It was how much they didn't lose on a certain stock. And that is a really valuable lesson. And once I learned that lesson, it helped me to start to think about risk management. And as I started to think about risk management and apply that into my life, that's when I really started thinking about the idea of starting the show, My Worst Investment Ever. Now I've interviewed 400 people, and I've had 500 written stories submitted to me. And I interview people every day. In fact, today I'm in between interviews. I have 7 interviews today. And I love the interviews because each person's story is different. And I get to know them and their story. But what I really appreciate about the interviews is I can start to understand what are the common themes. And what I've learned is there's basically 6 common mistakes. And you'll notice I have a little piece of paper up here, and that piece of paper has the 6 common mistakes, so that I always keep them in front of my face. First, most common mistake is that people don't do the research. If you don't research what it is that you're going to be investing in, whether that's time or money, you're going to be in trouble. The second most common mistake is that people don't assess and manage risk properly. Just those 2 mistakes is where the majority of my guests have problems. So the lesson I just want to convey to you in this little short video is, don't be afraid to look at your losers. Don't be afraid to talk about it and investigate it. In fact, the type of people that I like to be around are people that are willing to do that and that they grow from that. And when you look at those losers, keep in mind these 2 most common mistakes that people fail to do their own research, and they fail to properly assess and manage risk. And if you can be a person who does your own research and assesses and manages risk, then you truly will be able to build your wealth. In fact, it's more important than almost anything. I'm going to turn this around and show you some of my bookshelf. And there's a lot of books up there about investing and about how to hit home runs, how to analyze companies, which I teach a lot about. I've been teaching for 30 years how to value companies. But all of that valuation is meaningless if you lose all the money by not properly protecting your risk. So I teach in the Valuation Masterclass Bootcamp how to value companies, but I also teach how to assess risk and make sure that we don't get exposed to excessive risk. I hope that you can learn from that, and hopefully you can use this knowledge and my experience and the experience of my guests to reduce risk and increase return in your life.